Hi there. So my name's Rachel from Holistic Adventure, and today I just wanted to talk a little bit about. Oh, I might turn this off. I wanted to talk a little bit about anxiety, depression, and the causes. Now, to talk about this, I have to go back to my history, and from the age of 15, I had a really big death in my family and another death at school, and it really rocked me. I'm still working through a lot of those experiences 18 years later and understanding what they caused in my life and where I can move towards healing. So I took medication, antidepressant medication, probably like 17, 18, might even been a bit younger. And I remember thinking, I don't know what else to do. So I went to the GP. I opened up to my mum and I went to the GP. And my mum didn't really want me to go on antidepressants, but I don't think they really knew what to do at the time. And I started on Zoloft, which made me much worse and actually made me suicidal at the time. I was crying all the time. It was really horrible. I went into move into Sepramil and it seemed to balance me, but what I found with it is that it's a quick fix. There's no working through what's actually happened. I probably continued on and off medication for quite a long time. I remember I had a massive breakdown. I was about 23, 24, and I decided to move back. So I was living in Perth and I moved back to Adelaide to get off alcohol and to get off everything. And I started meds again, and it just wasn't helping. It would get me into a state of possibly numbing everything, but I was just a zombie and I wasn't like working through anything. And even if I went to a counsellor, I wasn't able to work through things. So around that time, I saw a psychologist in Perth before I moved back, and she talked to me about the fight or flight response that was happening in my body, the panic attacks, the anxiety, and the depression. And I talked to her about what can I do for that, because that seemed to be my biggest issue. I was having panic attacks in my sleep. I was not leaving the house. And she said to me, slow your breathing down at night. So it wasn't necessarily meditation, but what I didn't realize what I was doing was meditating, because meditation wasn't really a huge thing. It was kind of the thing that monks did and wasn't really as widespread as what it is now. And mindfulness definitely was not something that was, brought to the table. I started to really slow my breathing down at night, and it took a few years. I really only stopped having panic attacks last year. So, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 30, about 10 years of having panic attacks. And I've really only just started to vanquish it in the last year. Moving out of anxiety, depression is a real longevity process. It is not quick, and we do have to be really understanding of that. I think the problem is when we go to a GP and we go into the system and we think, oh, we need to have medication. Well, they tell us we need to have medication. When I got diagnosed with postnatal depression last year, the first thing that came up was, do you want medication for this? Now, I didn't even see a counsellor because a part of me knew there was something else going on at home, and all I really needed was the support of friends and family. So we moved back home. So we moved ourselves into a space of support. That was really all I really needed. I didn't need medication. I didn't actually need to see a counsellor. I really needed to work through what was happening for me, why I was feeling that way, and it really came down to not having support. Having support, I still struggle a little bit, but nowhere near to the point where I was. I have a lot more energy for myself and energy for things that I want to do. So when it comes to anxiety and depression, we are tricked into thinking that it's our fault as well. Now, as a qualified social worker, I would break down so much more. What was your childhood like? Is there significant trauma in your childhood? Are there experiences and situations like the deaths that I experienced that really, when did this start? Because I can tell you now that, say, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, your anxiety and depression has likely been there for a while. It's not just suddenly shown up and said, oh, I'm anxious. Yes, a GP has come forth and said, look, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. But we know that it's been there for a long time. And we usually know why. So we often keep things in our unconscious memories, our conscious mind. And these are memories that we often don't know what's happened. But a lot of the time, we can actually bring that out quite easily. It's actually not that hard. There are some really great processes and conversational tools where somebody can have real aha moments of, oh my goodness, that's when it all started. Now, a lot of my stuff actually started when I was 18 months old. My brother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and my dad worked, and my mum obviously couldn't be with me. So a lot of my stuff actually starts from there. Now, I got to that space because there's a therapy that working out your timeline. These are tools that I, have worked on myself and know that work. Working out exactly where it is on your timeline is really important. Then you can start to understand, okay, what has actually happened? The anxiety and depression you're feeling today, you've felt probably a lot of your life. The agoraphobia, where I really don't want to leave my house, I've felt that for a long time. I felt that when I was 24. I felt that when I was much younger. These aren't things that suddenly happen to us. Often, as children of, I'm an 80s child, but even earlier, we get really misconstrued into thinking that we need to do what our parents want us to do, or we need to do what somebody else wants us to do. We often feel like we're taking on so much. We are taking on so much. We're very sensitive and we take on a lot. And this year is huge around really finding that space. Now, there's no blame on older generations. There's no blame on anybody, even in family or friends or partners. If anything is happening, it's not because of their fault. Often it's because we're living against our human design. So something that's really worked for me and a lot of people around me is finding the human design. Because with the human design, we know whether we're actually going to be able to manifest things. I had this great idea that I was going to be able to manifest things, and why isn't this working? Why can't I manifest this? Why can't I say I want to earn this amount of money and get it? Because all these people that are manifestors are doing this really easily. And then I realized through my human design that I'm a generator. So that's not going to work for me at all. It's actually completely counterintuitive to everything in my life. So I had to pull back and go, okay, how does a generator work? My husband's a projector. So he literally lives off experiences, and that's it. So our move that we just did interstate was all about him being able to be in that space. Because where he was just frightfully depressed. And he's always been anxious and depressed. And when we started to track back why, a lot of it was because he was living someone else's life. And I often look back and think, what did I do for 5 years? I feel like I've been living someone else's life. So if you feel like you're living someone else's life, then this is totally something that you can work with. This anxiety that you're feeling is because you're not having enough support, or you're not able to communicate with people around you, or you don't feel like you can, and all it could take is learning some tools on how to do that, or just offloading something that's happened to you that you really need to talk about. I'm a really emotional person. I'm a Cancer star sign. I'm a generator. So I literally sit in a space and generate in meditation things. I think about things, and then I connect with them in the world. So I'm not necessarily putting it out there saying I'm gonna earn this amount of money and it come to me. I actually have to really just be myself. And for somebody who learnt to hard work, you work 5 days a week and you work full time, and this is how you make money, and it's not how it works for me. If I go out and work full time, I'll start shutting down. If my husband as a projector goes and works full time, he starts shutting down. And it may take 4 or 5 years, but eventually it comes into breakdown. So it's about working out, what's your human design. And with the trauma as well, like, you know, I'm looking at like ancestral trauma. I have a lot of ancestral trauma. We all do. We all come from like these old generations of roles, male, female roles, and, you know, covering things up and lots of secrets and things like that. Lots of intense private life things. And if we look at some of those, my husband has a lot of family of his going into asylums. He got labelled as schizophrenic as a teenager. Things like that, where you start to join the dots. It's about joining the dots for you. Depression is when we've had too much. When you're crying, when you just want to be alone, when you're at that point where you can't handle anything else. You're so sad. You feel like you're not yourself. You feel like you've just completely lost yourself, and where am I and what am I doing? That is a complete misalignment of soul. Like, and not in a bad way. It's just saying you're not living your life. You're not living where you want to be. And I think, like, I feel like I've tiptoed around it so much, like a little bit of here, a little bit of there. And I feel like we're really in a time now where, you know, it's about understanding that life isn't so cookie cutter about going to the GP and getting some meds and everything will be okay. We can't always go out and exercise. We can't always eat well. We can't always do these things. And there's this magical myth which is around, you know, you should be able to eat healthy all the time. You should be able to exercise all the time. You should be okay. And I can tell you now that even in a space where I've calmed so much of my anxiety and depression, I have some really bad days. And I have to really buckle down and just get myself into meditation, or I have to go for a walk on the beach. I have to take sometimes a whole day to do that. Now, we live in a society where it's about work, make money for something. We're always making money for something, for the debt of a house, for the debt of a car, for, you know, this holiday that we're going to go on. And a lot of that stuff is not going to work if you're not in a soul, mind, body connection. And everybody's a spiritual person. Everybody has abilities of, you know, a psychic nature in some way. Everybody's having dreams that are, you know, going to prophesize something. Everybody's experiencing an intensity of energy, and everybody is in some way sensitive. Everybody is wanting to connect to the inner child, and everybody is wanting to feel less frustrated, depressed, anxious, and really wanting to actually live life to the fullest. We all have different degrees of where we're at. We all have different degrees of what we've been through. We all have different childhoods. We all have different teenage life, school life. We're never going to get out of that without somebody calling us a name, you know. I had a huge experience in primary school, and I sit there and I'm like, I don't even understand why that happened, or, you know, feeling like I've always been on the outside my whole life with friends, always. Maybe I wasn't even able to connect with them. Maybe I wasn't even able to put that connection line in because I couldn't trust them for some reason. And so it always seemed to come back in my face, and I blamed them for a very long time about that. And, you know, things like that can really cause problems now. Just because it happened back then doesn't mean it's not affecting us now. So, you know, I just think when it comes to those really dark places, this is where it's about finding what works for you. I'm a poetry person, art, I'll sit down and draw. I need time out a lot, and that can be hard. It's not always possible. So it is about just mapping out what's going to work for you. What is your trauma lineage? Ancestrally, intergenerationally, you know, small experiences and situations that have caused you significant heartache or emotional distress. All these kinds of things are really natural. These are things that everybody experiences. It's just about whether they're talking about them or not. So what I, you know, work with is I have all these tools around, and, you know, with my qualifications as well, and the other qualifications I have around event management and my NLP and things like that, I'm able to spiritually connect on a really beautiful, intuitive level, and also bring your guides in, but also work with you on a level where, you know, it's not about fixing you. It's not about giving you the golden ticket. It's not about, oh, I'm going to make everything better. But it's about saying, do you know what? I've been through this. I know what this is like. I have proved tools that can really work, and sometimes just chatting to somebody really familiar who understands what's going on can really help. And even I find that recently I've been looking into why we can't have a baby, because suddenly we had our first baby and then now suddenly we can't seem to get pregnant. And just talking for an hour to a wonderful person who helped me understand that I actually haven't communicated with my husband about that. Now, we hadn't been intimate for a very long time. And I sat down with him and I was like, and it was really hard, but I said to him, like, what's going on? And, you know, we kind of were like, hang on, but we do love each other. We're just having some time out. And then things changed, like, instantly. I felt like the wall came down. So sometimes just talking to someone can really help. And I think sometimes, you know, it is good for it to be a familiar person who's actually been through a lot of this experience as well. I know when I was going to counsellors and psychologists, I was going to people who were like, when can you go exercise? Let's draw you up a schedule. Oh, do you need to do a vision board? And I was like literally at the point of breakdown. Do a vision board. So I do a vision board and it says like, I want to get a car, you know, I want to get a real job or whatever. And I'm thinking like now, wow, like that was way too early in the piece. Like the second appointment getting me to do a vision board. That's not the kind of stuff that like I would bring someone, you know, into someone's work until a little bit later when they're actually feeling like the mind, body, soul is in a better space. And I think the beautiful collaboration of my work is not only having that really instinctual, intuitive guidance space, but also I've got some really great energy healing tools and just the art focus that I focus on. I really focus on creativity and I focus on using the senses. So smelling and hearing and seeing and tasting and feeling is really important to our mind, body, soul connection, because often when we're in that stress space and we've got cortisol running through our body and we're just an emotional nightmare to ourselves, we lose a lot of those senses, or they become much more sensitive. So it's about like understanding and working out, okay, what is going to work for you as an individual. And I know from my experiences of seeing counselors and psychologists, as I said, I've only had one great experience and I had to leave because I was going into state. But my work is so much more spiritual. It's really on the understanding that we are in a, connected consciousness, and it is really important to work through in a spiritual journey. It could be a longevity thing. It's not going to be, I'm going to be okay tomorrow. I'm still not okay, and that's okay. I have days where I'm like, I don't want to leave the house. I have days where I just can't get my work done, and I will literally just like call my friend for hours. I have days where I don't want to see anyone, and I've got a 4-year-old, so I have to see a 4-year-old all the time, and that's really hard. But it gets, what gets me through is the tools that I have. It's about connecting back to what's going on, what's happened. And I'm doing a lot of childhood work at the moment for myself. So I know that globally and individually, what's happening for a lot of people if they're experiencing anxiety, depression, or they're feeling quite stressed out and they're not sure why, on the verge of breakdown, etc., is they're not on that trajectory. They're not just, understanding that, okay, this is what's happening. I need to connect to this. And sometimes it's just about connecting somebody into their intuition. And there's a lot of techniques that, I've learned over my many years of life and my qualifications as well to move into that space. And, what I see from a lot of people is they're not living their true soul purpose. And a huge part of why I'm here is to connect people to that space. It's really important to move into that space, especially if, you know, at the moment energetically we're being pushed to be ourselves, and the more that we're not ourselves, the more this plays up, and the more this plays up, and we really lose who we are. And, you know, it might be just having a few sessions and then being able to check in with someone every couple of weeks and saying, how's everything going? I find it interesting because people will go to a GP and then they'll go to a psychologist and things like that, and there's a lot more intuitive psychologists about. But this kind of stuff, I think energy healing is a really important process to it as well. And just looking at such a holistic view of what's actually happening for the person, what has happened for them in their life, what has happened for them in their family that they know of, energetically what, you know, intuitively connects for their space. And it's about the person healing their space, understanding their space. Like when I was chatting to this wonderful lady the other day, she was just asking me really basic questions, but I started to really uncover and unravel this stuff. And that is what I see is really important with individual healing, is starting people off so they have the tools to work for themselves. And that is the most important thing. Then they know where to go. Then they know what their journey is all about. And often we've already known. I was looking back at a poetry book that I wrote when I was 14, and there's stuff in there where I'm saying I want women to feel strong. I want them to really understand who they are. I really want them to, you know, feel like when you're reading this, that somebody is experiencing the same thing you are. And when I look back on that, I was like, whoa, that's exactly what I want to bring into my work now. So what I've done is I've combined everything that I know into my understanding of how I see the world and how I see individuals function and how I see individuals going on their journey. And it's really important to, and I when I had my postnatal, I was all like, oh, I've got postnatal. What does that mean? And I had to really sit and work it out. And you know, I thought, do I love my daughter? Do I love my husband? Like, what's going on here? And in the end, it's just my cup was full. I had nothing left. I had nothing left. And moving back home has given me a chance to just be and just calm and have alone time, because my husband's not like psychotically working all the time. So I actually have some, you know, me time and then some family time. And I think as a mom, you really need that. Yeah. So I just wanted to put this out there because it's really important at the moment to connect to the journey and to understand and to be able to work out, you know, when somebody's actually creating, you know, a supposed issue, I guess, and when you can go, okay, is this mine or is it yours? Because a lot of the time it's just somebody wanting to output their own crap onto you, or, you know, you start sitting there and saying, okay, where am I in all of this? Is that actually, you know, my fault? Or, you know, and it can be really hard to, I always say, like, when I'm in that space and I've taken on too much energy, I feel discombobulated. Like, I just feel like I'm all scattered everywhere. So yeah, so sometimes it's a lot of the time, you know, it's just about somebody being able to evaluate your situation and then you're able to evaluate your situation, or somebody asking questions so that you can evaluate the situation for yourself. That's hugely what the work that I provide. I really truly believe that we can really get to the point where we're not relying on medication, we're not relying on a medical system to tell us who to be, our parents or, you know, family or friends or a partner, and really just being ourselves. And it is not the easiest journey to take, but my goodness, it is so worth it. And inside, in your gut, you know why you're here. It's about building that bridge, that process, that understanding, and restoring your energy and restoring your soul energy so that you can heal those spaces that have happened over here to move into who you truly are. So thank you so much for watching my video today. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I see anxiety and depression coming up a lot, and it is something that I've dealt with my whole life. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, and a little bit about how Holistic Adventure works in all of that, and what I can provide for a beautiful individual like you. So if you're interested, please subscribe to the channel and head to my Facebook, details are below, or my website, and check out what I do. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm sure that I'll talk to you soon.